All right, there was a situation where I was working for this company in sales. I did my homework. They were a great company. The unfortunate thing was that I had a criminal record, so ended up working for companies that either had a high turnover or they were just so big that they didn't take the time to vet people out. Either way, I was working for this really great company in sales. They had an incredibly high sales percentage, somewhere around 60%. Their sales materials were so good, their product, their services were so good that's just what ended up happening. So one of the things that they wanted me to do was to bring out this form and ask them all these questions. Well, I kept running into sales resistance at the point of bringing out the form. I asked a guy, what was the problem? What went wrong? And he said, well, when you brought out that form, I feel like you're trying to figure out what all my weak points are. So they sent a sales trainer to ride along with me on an appointment, and I did everything the way they wanted me to, brought out the form. Oh, well, we're not making a decision today, and then at that point they weren't going to do it. So we met at a nearby parking lot, and I told him, I said, look, anytime I bring out that form, that's where they start digging in their heels. They don't want to do it. I said, the new train of thought, and I was a follower of Jeremy Minor, is that, pressure isn't ever going to work, okay? It's just the opposite. You have a good offering, build value, but don't just sit there and try to push them into doing something. They'll make that decision on their own, if you have a good product. And if they're looking to shop around, you're not going to really stop them from doing that. And I had experience, working for myself in sales, working for myself and doing sales for myself. I had the experience of, I don't like applying pressure, so I'm just not going to do it. And incidentally, my sales percentage went up dramatically. So anyways, I got written up for arguing with him. See, I told him, I said, look, if I do it my way, then you're not going to care, right? And he goes, I wouldn't care if you did a cartwheel on the ground as long as you sell the job. So we went on another one, I think the next day. And this time I decided to do it my own way because I knew I could get the job sold. It was a great product. I know how to sell. So I did it my way. And I sold it above par, meaning I sold it for a good price, a price that they're looking to get. And the end result was that we went to a nearby parking lot again, and he told me, you did everything wrong. I don't even know how you sold that job. And because I argued with him, I got in trouble. Well, I missed a sales meeting a few days after that. I slept in. Forgot to set my alarm. And they fired me for it. One of the reasons they fired me was because they cited that situation where I got into an argument with that guy. So I got pissed. And I got a little bit more than what you would normally consider acceptable in a situation like that. And this wasn't the first time that I had done that. And I told him, I said, look, this is, fortunately I had the presence of mind to let them know, look, this is something that happened with David when he was anointed to rule. And I basically proved to them that I was Jesus Christ. This is something that happened with David when he was anointed to rule. He became entitled. There was a situation where he was doing something for somebody and he demanded payment for it, even though they didn't have an arrangement. And the guy declined. He set about to actually go and kill the guy with his men. The guy sent out his wife and said, look, gave him some gifts and said, look, we don't want any trouble. And so David was one of the most righteous kings of all time. He was, when God pardoned all of the kings in the book of Kings, one after the other, for doing what they weren't supposed to do, he said, I'm forgiving you because of David. And they had a very complex set of rules, And some of the stuff was just, in several parts of the book of Kings, it says the people did what they wanted to do. They did what they saw fit in their own eyes. what they saw as being right. And probably it didn't jive with their sense of justice to be killing prostitutes, for doing prostitution and different things like this. But, God told him, He said, look, you're going to end up killing and eating your own children, amongst other things. And eventually that did happen. And so what I'm saying is that afterwards, I was lying in bed. I was thinking about, what had happened. I was still pissed off about it. And they told me to steal their company. And so they may want some stuff like that, It's not just, I don't think, I think when they say 666, that goes back to how many talents of gold that King Solomon was gifted. Those were gracious offerings. And didn't amount to the sum total of what he was, receiving, probably through taxation and different kinds of things like that. But anyways, I suspect that they may want me to take things. You know what I mean?